In the very first lecture, the very beginning of this course, I spoke of the inspiring declaration that serves as a mission statement for all of the laws and all of the court cases that we've studied in this semester. And I said, but we have to remember that the founders who wrote this document did not always live up to its ideals. What I left unspoken is that our judging them should cause us to envision how future generations are going to judge us. Which of our policies, which of our beliefs will appall them as being totally flawed? History is complex. It requires that we admire people for their greatness, while we also understand their flaws and their moral failures. History requires two things. It requires that we judge people in the context of their times, but it also permits us to judge people and applaud people for transcending their times, for being ahead of their times, for being the type of people who bend the arc of history, bend the arc of the moral universe towards justice. In front of the Supreme Court building of the state of Louisiana, on Royal Street, just down the block from me here, across from Brennan's Restaurant, there's a statue of Edward Douglass White. He's probably the highest ranking official, federal official ever to come out of Louisiana. He was Chief Justice of the US Supreme Court for a very long time. He voted with the 8-1 majority in favor of Plessy v. Ferguson, one of the worst 2 or 3 decisions ever made by the Supreme Court, the one that enshrined segregation as the law of the land in the 1890s. But he was also a person who wrote the opinion that struck down the grandfather clause, that clause right after the Civil War that Southern states put in their constitutions that denied formerly enslaved people the right to vote. He was also the person who wrote the law upholding the 40-hour work week. And he also was the person who broke up Standard Oil Company, saying that it was a monopoly. As I said, history, it's complex. And it's complex because people are complex. They're not actually made of marble. They're made, yep, of flesh and of blood. And it's ordinary people who push history forward. That's another thing we learned in this course. It's people like Anne Hutchinson, John Scopes of the Scopes trial, Oliver Brown and his daughter Linda, who wanted to attend the nearby school in Topeka, Kansas, Clarence Earl Gideon, a pretty flawed pool hall hustler and occasional homeless drifter alcoholic, but somebody who knew his rights. So when we judge our founders and we judge our forebears as being flawed, let's also ask what things that we may be doing that will appall future generations. 50 years from now, when people sit in Hebert Hall here at Tulane, or perhaps the hall formerly known as Hebert Hall, what will they think about that we did that will cause them to want to take our portraits down? You know, will they be appalled that we didn't have health care as a right? Will they be appalled that our schools are actually more segregated than they were 40 years ago, and that we've permitted separate and unequal school systems to exist? Will they say that the zeal that some politicians had for pursuing their own notions of the common good or what's good for the community trampled on individual liberty? Or will they be appalled that in some places we had a mask mandate that trampled on liberties? Or that they'll be appalled that we didn't enforce a mask mandate for the good of the community? Well, they think that we violated speech rights when we push social media companies to take down hateful speech. Or on the other hand, will they be surprised that our notions of free speech allowed social media companies to monetize enragement, monetize hateful and spiteful speech, not only to publish it and disseminate it, but to amplify it? Some of you may be kind of amazed at the notion, say, that anyone would oppose the right of gay marriage. But it was actually less than 40 years ago, it was only 25 years ago, that Bill Clinton signed the Defense of Marriage Act. So let's remember, history is about change. It's about the people who cause change, about why change happens, and it's about why some people resist it. History helps us understand change. It can even inspire us to help history progress, to be among those who put our thumbs slightly on the arc of history and help it bend just a little bit more, bend the arc of the moral universe towards justice. But history should also teach us a little bit of humility. The humility to know that we have not created a perfect union, but rather we're merely part of a process of trying to create a more perfect union. History does not give us the answers on how to do that, but history does give us the questions we should ask. I want to thank all of you for taking this course and for joining with me in asking those questions. Thank you all very much, and Godspeed.